I'm Millie Milliken. I'm a hospitality journalist. I mainly write about the bar space, but I've been writing about hospitality for about 12 years in restaurants and hotels as well. But I'm not the person you are here to learn from today at all. I am a facilitator of the conversation. And this is Peter Avis, GM at Galvin at Windows. And he is a man with 20 years experience in this industry and many accolades to his name. And we're going to be talking about boosting workforce retention and elevating customer service this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Very, very excited to be here. And definitely a subject matter I'm really, really passionate about. So very, very excited to be here to share my tips and strategies and my little journey in hospitality.
So just to kick off, it would be great to know, how did you end up where you are today? How did it happen? What happened?
How did this happen? So I think it's really important to put in context where it started for me, because basically what I've learned over the last 25 years in business is that when we become the leaders we are, and you sit in the position I sit in today, we sometimes forget how we got there, right? And the reason that I'm here today is I've had a great career in hospitality. It started out washing dishes, so as a dishwasher. I didn't get a formal education academically. It just wasn't the right thing for me. Started out washing dishes, worked for some great companies along the way. So I stayed 4 years in Miami. I got the chance to move to Miami when I was 17, worked as a dishwasher, ended up spending 4 years in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, a cheeky lad with my two sisters, trying to have an American dream. And my first job was washing dishes. And the reason I stand here today is that the owner of that restaurant, you know, washing dishes for a young person isn't something you really want to do, right? And I think it's important just to share this as a snippet. And I went into this restaurant with this very little attitude, like, I don't want to wash dishes, you know, I'm not washing someone else's dishes. And this man came up to me and he said, "Are you Peter?" And now where I come from, if someone knew your name, you'd done something very wrong. And I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Can we have a chat?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You know, I'm Nick, the owner." And he was the owner of the business. And all Nick did was spend 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, having a coffee with me. And he gave me my first ever cappuccino, which was like, oh my God, it's a posh coffee. And he just told me how important that role was, and every single guest going into his business was going to eat from these dishes, and every single guest coming into the business, you know, was going to make sure this crockery was clean. So I went from this disgruntled, I'm still disgruntled, but I was really like this, and I went like, my body language literally changed, and it was the first time I felt valued. So that's how my career in hospitality began. Long story short, I spent 4 years with that company. I then worked to the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and I spent a year at the MGM and worked as a head waiter. And the great thing about the MGM was there was culture, there was structure, there was purpose, and that really made me want to be part of that business as well. I then over the years come back to the UK because everything went wrong in the States. And I best part of my career was working for Richard Branson in the Virgin Group, and I spent 16 years working directly for Richard. I got it sounds ridiculous, I travelled the world because you've got these private islands and private hotels, and my job over the years was to implement strategies and standards. And I was really naively lucky to work for such a leader, because in Virgin it's really about people, and that was the common thesis throughout Virgin, you know, being transparent with your business model and your people. So I spent 16 years with Richard in the Virgin Group. I then spent 3 years with my own management consultancy, and then in February 2020 become the general manager of Galvin at Windows, which is in the Hilton on Park Lane, and that's where I am today. And I'm also the vice chair of the Institute of Hospitality, so 2 roles I run.
Fantastic, fascinating career. And this topic of discussion, I feel like, I mean, ever since I've been writing about this industry, has been a topic that has been coming up over and over again. Obviously, we're in a very specific set of circumstances at the moment, which we won't dwell on too much. But what do you think the current climate is at the moment when it comes to our staff in hospitality in the UK at the moment?
It's a very good question. I think now what we're finding in our, I'm sorry, I'm conscious my restaurant manager and reservations manager here, and I keep referring to them. I think what we're seeing now is the landscape has changed, and it's a landscape that I personally believe has changed for the better. Why? Because I think that before the new landscape, as I like to call it, our branding culture wasn't marrying in the industry, and it was normal. Like me coming up as an example, I'll share. For me to become, I desperately wanted to be a manager. I always wanted to make something of myself, like most people do in their careers. And the only way that I could get a suit on was by doing more hours than the other guy, right? That was the norm. Like, you were a big ballsy guy if you could do 60 hours a week, and that's how we rated in our industry. And that never really sat well with me, you know. So what I'm finding now, and what I embrace, is that team members want flexibility. They want a different way of working, and they want to know your story. And I think when we talk about staff retention, it isn't just about people for me. I think in our business, it's about how you set that business up. So people want to know, what are your revenues, what's your vision, what's your sustainability ethos. You know, they want to know that they're coming into a business that's got structure, but they also want that flexibility. And that's the biggest change we've seen. A lot less people. I think people are a luxury that we have. So we've definitely got less people. They definitely want a different work pattern, and but they definitely want to be part of something that's special. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, nice. And can we talk a little bit about those sort of business models? And, you know, I think a lot of the time, as we were discussing earlier, we do focus on the people. But I think, you know, there is a bottom line, and keeping staff, you know, keeps your business ticking over, and keeping them engaged and training them properly is so important. How have you seen in your business that play out, where you've managed to train people to a level where it's actually, you know, kept your KPIs up, or you've hit targets in a way that maybe you wouldn't have done, say, before the new landscape?
Good, yeah, there's examples. I think when we came back, so one example I can explain what we did in our business is when we came back, you know, we did have this 2-year closure, and we had the whole situation we all went through. So when we closed Galvin at Windows, I was appointed everyone 2 weeks before the pandemic, so that was another story. It was a bit of a stressful situation. But we did have, we had a team of 8 sommeliers. This is one example I can give. So at Galvin at Windows, Hilton Park Lane, wine sales are a massive part of our revenue targets that we always need to keep a close check on. So we closed the business with 7 sommeliers, and then obviously, because of all different rules and regulations to do with our industry being deemed as a low skill by our government, we weren't getting the talent coming back into the UK. And then when the whole COVID situation happened, a lot of our teams went back, rightly so, to their countries and to their families. So when we reopened Galvin at Windows, we reopened with a team of 3 sommeliers, and I was like, oh crap, we've still got these targets to make. And everyone was sort of dwindling on that, right? Going, oh my God, this is a problem, what are we going to do? And we sort of went, well, my main reaction was, I don't want to lose my head sommelier, right? So our head sommelier, one of our audience guests had met her at an event recently, and she's an amazing girl. And I remember just thinking, I need to keep her in this business if we're going to keep our wine sales going. And we've also got to address this issue we've got with no team members as sommeliers coming in. So what we did, we invested in Regina, our head sommelier, and we sent her off for an educator program with WSET, which is the Wine and Spirit Educational Trust. So what we did is we invested in her, and she was like, what? I said, yeah, we're going to invest in you to become an educator. She loves to train, she loves to develop people. And the bounce back of that was Regina went off, she became an educator, and she's now able to train all of our team to level 2 WSET. In turn, what that's meant for me as a general manager is, number one, I kept my Regina and I kept a stable team. Number two, from a training perspective, as you say, what the feeling was around the business, oh, if we stay here, not just Regina, but all of our food and beverage staff could be trained to a recognised qualification in wines and spirits. And thirdly, and as importantly, the commercial targets I have as a general manager were not only being achieved, but we're now actually seeing a 33% increase on guest per head spend on wines than what we were seeing in 2019. So it just shows that by just thinking a little bit differently in that box and investing in your talent from a training perspective, we've now retained our sommelier team. We've now got a team of 5, by the way, so we have increased the sommelier team. But the great thing I see now is these commie waiters that are just coming into the industry are getting WSET level 1 qualification, and they're doing that on site, and they're like, oh my God, this is a great place to work. So I think that's one example I could share where we've embraced training inwardly to retain our teams as well.
Brilliant. And you know, obviously you maybe have less people working in those roles than you did before, but the training level's gone up. How do you then see that knock-on effect to customer service and delivering what you deem to be the highest standard that you want from your team?
Well, I think one of the things I see, and this is just me, when I took on the role at Galvin at Windows, it was it was known, its vision was a Michelin starred restaurant, which unfortunately they no longer hold. But Galvin at Windows was a very French service orientated restaurant, which was amazing, you know, and it was always like that. But that come with lots of layers. That come with a waiter, a chef de rang, a head waiter, a manager, a receptionist. So there was about 8 people going to the table, and it was just a bit, you know, looking at what our guests want now. They don't want so much interaction. They want to build rapport with a person. They don't want 8 people touching the table. And I think we've seen that with them big lunches we used to have. They're just not there anymore. So I think that by implementing the WSET project into Galvin at Windows, the benefit to the guest experience is they build rapport with their waiter more as well. The waiter can engage with them about the wine, can talk about the wine, can sell the wine, as opposed to it being so many layers on the table.
Yeah. And I think we're going to come to this a little bit later on in the discussion as well, at the end. But in terms of sort of specific training programs that you've put in place for your team and your staff, what do they look like, and what would you say are the most valuable types of training that you've given your staff?
God, that's a good question. I've put so many training programs in place. I think when I come back, I just realised that there's so many opportunities, and I think what was deemed, and I get in trouble saying this, but I can find myself saying it, I think there's so many opportunities in our landscape right now, opportunities that we just weren't grabbing before the pandemic and before the whole Brexit situation, and that is being able, one of the programs we've run at Galvin is bringing in young people who've maybe got ability limitations, so young people who are autistic, and we've identified that people with autism have a really great place in hospitality because they have a great attention to detail. You know, they're very precise. And Daniel and Andres, we had one student, Daniel, that come to work for us, and I spoke with his mum before he come to do the training program. It's a 12-week program at Galvin, and his mum said to me, but you know, he has these outbreaks, he has these meltdowns, I'm not really sure he can do this. But by engaging my team in that, they felt, I'm pointing at Andre and Michaela again, but these guys felt they were part of something, because being in hospitality is helping people. So that training program, again, gave my team, wider team, more purpose in the business. And also Daniel, that autistic young man, is now a supervisor in Scotland. So it's quite a powerful thing that you can bring into your businesses. That didn't cost us nothing but empty hotel rooms that we had at the time. And that program's been really successful. And then we run like the Galvin Chance program as well, which helps underprivileged and disengaged young people from London come in on a training program. It's quite challenging at the beginning, but I'm great. Charles has just been, he's just become a full-time bar waiter, and he's one of our best. So yeah, that's
fantastic. Some amazing initiatives in there. And let's talk about the new workforce coming in. How are you? You know, I think we hear about it a lot more maybe in the sort of quote-unquote corporate world, the office world, and people working from home and things like that. Obviously, this business is very different when it comes to having people in your operation. But how are you kind of using what they want to an advantage to kind of change the way that you're working, but still give your staff the lifestyle or the work lifestyle that they want at the end of the day?
I think that's the biggest change we're all seeing. I think that's why this event and events like this is so important, because what we're seeing is we have our core team, right? So we have our core team, us, which is like the guys that have been in the industry for a while, and we're happy to be very flexible with our weekends and working Christmas and working evenings and whatever it may be. But there's also a workforce coming through that have a different mindset to what we had. What I think is really important in our industry is that our brand and culture marry. And what I mean by that, if we're saying, like I'm sitting here right now saying, we have to be flexible, we have to appreciate work-life balance, our cultures need to afford that as well, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I've come up against situations with certain people where they're saying what I'm saying now, and then behind closed doors going, but if you want to succeed, you've got to do the 70 hours. And it's just not that. One example we can give at Galvin that we're looking at is people don't want to work. So some of the team members coming in might be studying at university and they're going to do degrees in mathematics or finance. And we've got some great team members in our business that do that, but they can't give us that flexibility. I.e. Olivia, that's going to be a professor of languages, who's fabulous, is in the middle of her thesis. So she has to leave the business at 9 p.m. And we embrace that. But what we do is think differently. So if they don't want to work till 2 in the morning, so my son is 17, he's a fit fanatic, he goes to the gym very, early in the mornings. So we're looking at a shift where you can start maybe at 6 a.m. and do the polishing of the glassware from the night before so that that team can leave early. So you just got to really jump in and get to know your teams and to get to know what do they want and let them know it's okay not to do them crazy hours and it's okay not to work every weekend. Like Michaela's just had a CV of one lady that wants to come and work for us and she's got 2 kids. She can't work evenings and she can do 3 days a week. Brilliant. We embrace her. But we still got to balance the fairness for all the team. So I think as leaders, like we had an event, when was the event we've just done for the town hall one where we had to move all the furniture? And we had an event, I was in a manager meeting last week, so I'm the general manager, I'm the GMs here, and we have a weekly manager meeting. And my job as a general manager is to look after my teams, but I don't have all the answers and I don't know what these guys are thinking all the time, right? So we had an event where the client was paying us a lot of money, a lot. And I saw the money, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money. We need that money right now, and in general. And but one of the things in the management, I could sense a tenseness amongst my management team. And I was like, what's going on here? And I think this is where external apps and in engaging with tech, like we're doing here with Brigad, is so important because these guys were tense. And I probed and I said, guys, what's going on? And it was one of the managers, not these guys, said, well, the guys are going to finish at midnight. Then you're going to have to move all the tables, all the chairs. Then they've got to come back tomorrow morning and get ready for the breakfast. They're going to be destroyed. And we don't have the headcount we had before. That's gone. And we thought about that. I'm like, okay. And we have a system in Hilton where we can call in casual workers. So what we did is we arranged for some houseboys to be booked in to support the team in that. So that the heavy duty work was getting done without our team having to do it. And I think as general managers in this new landscape, you've just got to think a little bit differently and think, do I need to jump on that app and get 2 more chefs in? Even if them chefs are going to cost you £1,000, you're getting that big revenue from the event. It's worth doing. And I think as general managers, that when we're talking about retention and value, like it's not just with your people, it's about the strategy you have in your overall business model. I think that's what's really important.
I think we were talking before everyone arrived, and I find a lot of the time, specifically in the bar industry, I find this a lot. There are people who say, people aren't looking at the bartending industry as something that is a career. They look at it as a stopgap. And it's kind of almost like they want to convert those people who are using hospitality as a stopgap job. They're like, we want to convert them into realizing it's a career. But do you find that you've become more agile now so you can embrace both types of people, the people who are doing this as a career and they want to progress, but you're also able to use these people who might be doing it as a side job or doing it while they're paying for something else or during education? Have you found that you've become more agile when it comes to the people that you're using in your team while also concentrating on your core team?
Well, if I'm being brutally honest, I think that was my opinion before. Okay. Like I always did in my days, and that's why I find, and I've been in interviews with certain publications recently where I've just been honest and said, I think this is the, people go, oh my God, Brexit and the COVID and the hospitality industry, and it has battered our sector, definitely. But it's also a new dawn. It's also a new awakening. It's also a new moment for us to really engage. And Jose, I'm thinking of in our bar that's in finance at university. He is one of the top bartenders. He comes in with such a great energy, and the shifts he comes to do, he gives us all, and I engage that. But what I would say to leaders in the audience is what I've done cleverly, like Megan in my previous job, she come to work for me as a waitress. She was at the American University in London. She was going to do a marketing degree. After she graduated, without realising that, she fell in love with hospitality and she became my reception manager and was with me for 10 years. So, I think our job as leaders, if you do find a talent like Jose's and you're showing them how great our industry is, and hospitality is not just being a waiter, it's not just being a receptionist. Hospitality, there's financiers, there's HR, there's so many segments of our industry that we don't think about when we think about hospitality. So yeah, we should embrace people who are pursuing other career paths, but we should be showing them at the same time what a great career they could have in hospitality.
And You are a huge advocate for using tech as well. I know we've spoken about this.
I'm terrible at tech myself, but I embrace it.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah, ditto. How do you embrace tech in your industry? I feel like a lot of people in the industry are a bit scared of it. They worry that it might be taking jobs away from people, or the human touch is always sort of brought up as well. We're losing that. How have you embraced it in the business, and how have you seen it, help with things like customer service and keeping your staff engaged and keeping them happy and healthy?
Look, I think this is a big conversation right now that we're all having, and I think that the example I was using before is, I remember, this shows how old I am, but I remember going years ago, over 20 years ago, to the restaurant show and meeting a lady called Olivia Fitzgerald, and she spoke to me about online bookings. It was called live bookings at the time, and I was like, what? And it was so techy, and I was like, there's no way. I can see some people get that in the audience, actually. And I was like, there's no way in the world my guests are going to book a reservation online. That was my red line. 20 years on, over 90% of our bookings are online. So I think with tech, we have to be brave and we have to embrace it, because we don't have the luxury of the volume of people we had before. That's gone. I think hospitality is this, and I don't think we as leaders and as part of it should ever be scared that, a robot's not going to sit in a turtleneck like this and have a conversation. It's just not going to happen. We are hospitality, but we have to embrace tech. And I think that working for Hilton, everything is online. So we have all of our training programs, our contract, everything is online, but our job is just to personalize it and engage with it, because if we don't, like apps like Brigad, who really give us the opportunity to secure the workforce we need, we as leaders and industry people need to embrace that. And at Galvin, we have a lot of tech, like contracts are sent automatically. But we personalise that as well. So if we've got new team members coming in, they'll still get a handwritten card. So you've got to balance the personal with the tech. But I would advise anyone to really embrace tech with our industry, because that's where we're at. And I'm a big advocate for it, because it makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah, fantastic. And we were talking before about talent and the new workforce and people coming into the industry. Where are you finding the new talent in the industry at the moment? Where are you looking at recruitment centres? Are you looking at graduates? Are they just coming organically to you? Where are you finding the new sort of talent leaders?
So I go a lot into university. So next week I'm at the West London University, and I'm going to be speaking to graduates at the West London University that are graduating in hospitality. And that won't just be for Galvin at Windows, that will be for the wider hotel and the wider industry, because I think the more of these conversations we have, the more people see how serious and buoyant we are about our sector. A lot of the recommendations, we got to word them out. It's like a restaurant, right? If you give a good meal, guys, and you serve a good food, and the people like the food you're serving, they're going to tell their friends, and then people are going to book your restaurants. And I find that in hospitality, that people, we touch wood, we have a good reputation. That if you come and work for us, you're going to be looked after. It's going to be a fair game. We're going to value you. And there is a big word of mouth out there. So people say, oh yeah, I've heard, that you guys can help. So I think for us, it's getting out into education. So Westminster Kingsway College, I do a lot of work with them. I love to go into the regions as well and get people coming into London. But most of it is word of mouth and having conversations with people, really.
Brilliant. And we've spoken a bit, we've mentioned this term, the new landscape at the moment, that we're all in. What do you think that landscape kind of looks like in the future? I think we always compare where we are now to, say, 5 years ago. Where do you think this new way of working is going to go, and what do you think you would like to see come out of this new world that we're in?
Gosh, I think what I would love to see come out of this new landscape is that in schools in the UK, that young people are being taught that if they're not going to get GCSEs at A grade, that there's still an amazing, successful career to be had. And I look at me, as a dishwasher, with not a GCSE to my name, and I worked hard and I had the right leaders around me. So I think I would love to see our government engaging more, not to get political in any way, because I'm not, but I do think we need to engage more with hospitality and show young people coming up that don't discount it, because you can have a fantastic career. I think the landscape's changed. We need to involve, we need to work more in partnership with companies like Brigad, and it's more instant, right? Like, we don't know when we're going to need the talent. And I think for me, it's important that we're building these relationships with suppliers that can help us. where's the industry, in my opinion, and the stats show it. There's growth. I mean, our business is showing massive growth on last year. Maybe our budgets in general, we've all set our budgets a bit high and got a bit excited, but, you know, we're seeing good growth to where we were in the same period last year. That gives me confidence. And just seeing how happy people are coming out, and our job is to lead that experience and really show our teams and our guests that we're here, we're back, we're buoyant, and we want to give the best possible service, even better than before. And I think hospitality has just got such an exciting future in the UK, and I'm really excited to be part of that and to see companies like Brigad coming over and really engaging with our sector and supporting us, because we need that support and we need to support each other for the future.
Yeah, brilliant. And if, you know, there was someone in the audience here and they're really struggling with getting staff on board, they're struggling with recruitment, maybe customer service is a pinch point, what would you kind of advise them to do as sort of a starting point, to sit back, look at the business model, look at what their KPIs are for the end of the year, look at what their targets are? What would you say are the main things they should be focusing on, rather than maybe sort of spending more time worrying about the situation and letting it get worse than it already is? Okay,
number one, get the Brigad app, because they've got some great, you know, you can get your talent right away, guys. We all should be on that, so get your head on that. I'm joking, but it is important. I think, yeah, what was the question again?
Any advice you would have for anyone really struggling with these two things at the moment?
Oh, yeah.
First things they should be thinking of at this moment?
I think the most important thing for any business leader in 2023 that I'm finding is that, like, you need to have a clear vision of your business. So then you know, if someone's coming into your business and you don't know what your business model is, or you haven't got structured in the business, the new workforce coming in, whether they're coming to do a 5-hour shift through an app or whether they're coming to be a full-time team member, you need to have a robust recruitment and onboarding plan in place. I think that's really important, because people want the story and everything is so instant now. So when I'm looking for a chef de rang, like we had a chef de rang position open just today, you know, we've got to sell them that dream, and you don't have the time like before. It's so instant, because they're looking at Galvin, they're looking at the other 3 competitors, and they're just choosing that one right away. So you've got to be fast, you've got to be on it. Don't expect people to come in your business and you give them all, this is our brand, aren't we amazing? And then they come in and get treated like a piece of crap, and they don't have a buddy, there's no one there to meet them, there's no structure to their first day. If that's how you're running your businesses and that's how you're allowing your businesses to be run, staff retention won't happen, because there's just so many I've got so many competitors in Park Lane right now, it's ridiculous, paying a lot more. And we know that. And offers have come into my senior team. Why are they staying at Galvin? He hopes. It's because they're being valued, they're part of a mission, they're helping other people change their lives. And that's what we've implemented. Like, we are a dated restaurant. You know, we're overdue for refurbishment, but there's a warm and welcoming culture. And I think that's what employers should be looking for when they're bringing new team members in. Whether they're casuals, whether they're on a, you know, like Brigad or other apps, whether they're just for a few hours, that's your reputation. Even when we have security, we have a new security every other day at the minute in 10 degrees, right? But they get every security guard coming in from that agency gets a briefing and they sign it. Right? And that's because if that security guard speaks to Joe Bloggs and doesn't know where the toilets are, that's our reputation. So what I'd say to you is that either if you've got a team member on an app for coming through Brigad, or another app or another system, and you've only got them for a few hours, treat them like they're your longest term employees, because they're the ones that are going to go and talk about your business outwardly.
And I think that's really important. You know, you're bringing sort of, people are ambassadors for your business. At the end of the day, you want them to be going out and talking about how much they love working for their business and they're staying there. In terms of investing in these future people as well, you know, how can we be talking? I know we've mentioned I go back to my old school, which, you know, told me that I should be, well, not a lawyer because I'm not clever enough to be a lawyer, but, you know, telling me to do the usual suspect jobs that you would get. How do we really engage new people coming into the industry, whether they are young people or there's a growing older workforce as well? I was in the States this year and there's a huge older workforce that are in retirement and they're looking to come back into work. How do we outwardly get people excited about working in hospitality? Or who do we need to entrust to do that for us or with us?
God, it is. I think this is what we have to keep doing more. We need to keep having the conversations. And I think that's one very good point, is that hospitality is for everyone. I mean, I've got my sister works for me. She's 50 with 2 teenage kids, and she works 3 days a week, you know, and has come back into the industry. And I think she's told her friends, now one of her friends has just got a job at the Peninsula, which is a hotel across the road, and she's 55, and she's just got 4 days a week there. So I think it's just showing people what we do. I think the more support we can get from events like this is really important, because our industry is buoyant. It's paying really well. It offers, Hilton as a hotel group as an example, I didn't know the benefits you get. You know, working in hospitality affords you many benefits and flexibility, and I think that we just have to keep having that conversation. And the more media, the more awareness in schools, you know, getting the education behind it, I think that's the future. And as you said earlier, we have to embrace that we're going to have different segments of society coming into our industry, and it's a family. My family at home, and I always use this analogy, is really dysfunctional, and I love it. I love my family. We're a blended family. I'm guardian to my sister's 2 kids. I've got my sister, I've got my mum, and we are one messed up family. But anyone that comes into my house, it's true, feels so at home, and there's a culture and there's a happiness, and people love to be there. And I think if you can do that in your business, then people are going to want to be there, if that makes sense. And I think that's what we try to do, and that's what I try to do as an industry leader, is just keep shouting out there the great opportunities we afford people in our sector.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've covered everything that we said we wanted to discuss, but I know you've got some slides as well to run through. Would you be okay running through those? Just tell us a bit more about what you do specifically at Galvin.
Definitely. So what this is, guys, and I just thought it was interesting to, I'm going to stand up because I'm terrible at sitting on, I can't, so give me legs. So what I thought was really just to finish the session, and I'm happy to share this with you guys, and you can just, anyone wants a copy, honestly, I think we have, that's the thing with our industry, right? We've got to come away from this like, oh, we're doing really well and we don't share. The more we share, the more transparency we can show each other, the more we're going to come back to a bigger success in our industry. So what I was going to share with you here, I never use post-COVID because it reminds me of an A&E with a face mask. But what this is what I believe are the 4 pillars for success in the new landscape. And before they go into the 4 pillars, these are measured strategies that we've used at Galvin at Windows since coming back in 2022. And I've split it into 4. So we can just go to the next slide. I really genuinely believe that if you want to retain your teams, and if you want your teams to feel valued, and if you want your business to be commercially successful, it isn't just about being nice to people. Because as a manager, you know, I'm not always nice to people. You know, we're not always, oh, I'm really nice. We need to create a culture and strategies that are holistically around the business, because by hitting these 4 pillars, that will create a successful business foundation and level. Okay, so the 4 are your vision, people, being sustainable, and digital marketing. So we just go into vision. At Galvin at Windows, one example, when we came back from the pandemic, Galvin, before my tenure under Fred, the previous general manager, was a very different business model. Then the pandemic and everything else came along. So what we did is I got the team together and I was like, okay, who are we? I didn't know who we were, and I was the leader, and I was like going back, going, oh my God, I've got to face all these managers, and I don't even know who I am after this pandemic. How can they know who I am? And long story short, we involved a key team in that vision. It wasn't just me or the directors, it was a team effort. And we decided to say Galvin at Windows is a fun destination dining experience where each and every guest will be served by a fun, passionate and enthusiastic team. So we took the fine out of dining and implemented fun without compromising quality as one example. Why? Because during my experience in pandemic, for 2 years, I looked at my sister and the 2 kids watching Coronation Street and thought, the next time I go out, I don't even want to look at you. I want to know what's going on in the business. So have a clear vision, involve your team. We have this habit from old school in hospitality, I'm the big boy and I tell you what you do. Them days are gone. So involve your team, ensure your vision lives through the culture of your company. So make sure your brand and culture marry, and adapt and change your vision as the business evolves.
Can I just ask, how easy is it to change a business model coming into a role? You know, how long does that take realistically?
Long. It does. I think what I've learned over the years and working for Richard Branson, I think I was naively so blessed working for that man, because in Virgin, you were responsible for your budget. You were responsible for your business. You really give you full ownership. So I came up from quite a young age believing that was the right way. And by engaging, like with Andrea, had worked at Galvin for many years, and she's had a certain way of working. And I came along, oh, babe, we're going to do this. And she was like, who is this guy? But by building that relationship and trust between each other and listening to what her opinion was from her reservations, and we changed quite a lot, didn't we, in that aspect as well. So it's involving your team, and I think if they buy into it, it's like changing something in your house, isn't it? Like you want your family to be part of that. So that's how we do it. So that's on vision, and then on the next slide is people, which is the most important, right? And I think on people, it's there, you know, the importance of people. Sell your product in a human way. Just be human. Remember, everyone wants a human being. Tell your story. You know, I always tell the story of Galvin. I'm very honest about our story and who we are, so that people are buying into that. Recruitment and onboarding is essential. We all know that if you get a really bad onboarding, you don't have a good opinion of the business. So I'd say recruitment and onboarding, developing your team. The cup of coffee, as I mentioned earlier, is so important. That cup of coffee, even if you're coming in, if you've got a team member coming in to do a kitchen shift for 4 hours, or a new manager coming into the business, have a coffee with them or a glass of champagne or whatever you choose to have. But that can really change how a person feels about your business. And as someone coming into your house, you would do that. But as leaders, we say, oh, we're too busy, I've got no time. But schedule it, get it in your diary, because if you don't have that cup of coffee or that glass of wine, I remember starting, and I was really structured in that when I went into Galvin as the new GM, you know, and there was a lot of I look back and think, God, there was many eyes on me, but, you know, I knew it was really important for me to engage with the management team so they would welcome me into their home. So I'd really say the cup of coffee. And more importantly, succession and development plans. This new generation coming in, whether they're older team members or the younger team members, they want to be part of something. If they're there for the stay, then make sure you have a plan in place for their success, because they're looking to us to give them that. And the next one is being sustainable is critical, more now than ever. I did a Q&A recently, and the more questions on sustainability were crazy. But just make sure your product's sustainable, your price can sustain, your place, and make sure, like in Virgin, we were very a force for good. Like all these training programs I do in engaging with disadvantaged young people and disengaged young people, I've also got a business to run, and I also have a P&L to achieve and a budget to achieve. So you can't be a busy fool in your business, because we have to be business savvy. But that example I used earlier of getting the houseboys in overnight, yeah, it was an investment to me from the money we were making, but that made my team see, look, I'm serious about you guys and valuing it. So I would say if you're ever in a situation where you need to get people in to cover, to help, you know, using tech like Brigad and others, get people in to make sure you're doing the right thing, but be profitable, because being a force for good doesn't mean you can't be a bad business person, and just be nice. You've got to make money. And then the last one on that, but it's revenue and profit. And again, I'm blessed with the team around me, because, you know, we've had dips where the revenues weren't coming in, but I have a clear budget and targets and share them with the team. Or, you know, we try to be very transparent what we're trying to achieve. Don't be a busy fool in a new landscape. So don't try and do too many nice things if it's not converting in the bottom line. Like, look at your business in detail. Think out the box to maximize your revenues. We've done things like fashion shows. We're making decisions now to close the business to do big events, which we would never have done before in 2019. But we've got lots of big events in, and that's a new capture of market that we're taking currently. And keep a detailed forecast. And I think that's something we sometimes miss, because like when I did that event the other week, when we were looking at the revenues of that event, by forecasting in, knowing what revenues we were getting, I knew I could turn to external suppliers to bring in 4 houseboys and still make more than needed profit on the bottom line. So I think forecasting your business is really important, because things do keep changing, as we know. So I'd say keep an eye on your forecast. I see some smiles and mention forecast in that room as well, yeah? I know. So yeah, that's really my 4 pillars for success in the landscape.
Thank you very much. I think you said you're happy to share that as well with anyone afterwards, yeah.
Just take a picture of me.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, I think we've got about 10-15 minutes left for questions as well, so I'm happy to be a roaming mic. Does anyone have any questions for Peter, please? Come on, be brave, be the first person. There we go.
He's also involved in the Institute of Hospitality, which I think helps.
Yeah. Yes, sir, with the question. Thank you.
It's not a question. Basically, it's more we're talking about agency staff, and I have worked with agency staff, and sometimes you do get treated badly because either people are annoyed that you come in for the day. So it's more like, how do you make sure your staff are treating the agency staff with that respect? Like, it's great that you've got people to come in and help with the tables. But I remember being at agency staff thinking, oh my god, my whole shift is moving tables and I've got to be a waiter. So it's like letting the agency feel like they're part of the team as well, like making sure the staff are treated as part of the team. Yeah.
What we do at Galvin is we have a good buddy system in place, and that's for everyone. So we have a lot of variable and agency staff coming through, not just in Galvin but in the wider hotel as well. I think what's really important there is that your fundamental team. So as I said earlier, what we have now, we're seeing in other businesses, is this core team of your full time. I call it like rock star and superstar, right? So you've got your little rock stars that are there, and then your superstars are coming in to support, type of analogy. What's really important is that we're communicating that to our core team and saying, like the houseboy situation, look, these houseboys are coming in to help us, but they're coming in to support you. You need to look after them. You need to make sure they still get staff food arranged, So it's having that buddy system. It's like the security from the agency, like they do a nice, because it's different security every week. But I say to my team, but you've got to look after them. He's a different one, but our job is to make sure he feels part or she feels part of our business. So I think communication with the team is really important on that.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hi, Peter. First, thanks a lot. I think, like all the panels I've seen recently on hospitality was like so depressing, to be honest. Because they have problems, issues, cost of living crisis, etc. There are issues, of course. But like hearing someone from hospitality, like talking about solutions, being creative, like with great energy, I think was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And my question is, one thing I take from everything you said is, if you want to build workforce retention, that's an investment. You need to invest in it. And so if you had to convince other hospitality businesses to invest in that, are you able to actually measure? Because as you said, in the end, you're running a business. So are you able to measure the impact on your business in the end, top line, bottom line, whatever, customer satisfaction? Like, how would you say, like, this is a big investment, but it's worth it?
Well, I think from a training perspective, it was showing the measurement of our increase in sales, and that we can measure through our sales. I think the other measurement as well is by investing in training and in your team retention, you retain them. Right, so I think it's easy to analyse that by investing in Andrea Piers, one of our supervisors, that we're heavily investing in him, by him staying in our business and us retaining him, is saving the business a lot of money. Yeah, and I think that by looking after your team and bringing an additional resource shows the team that, there's not so much pressure on me. So you can measure it from your overall payroll, really, but I think the measurement comes from what the sales show as well, and the growth that the business shows, and the retention that the business shows is how we measure it, our retention in our business.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor?
Questions? Shark?
Come on. Go on, Eamon.
Obviously, I think everyone can agree that the luxury sector now, it's a bit more accessible, a bit more relaxed. You sort of briefly touched on people don't want those sort of overly stuffy experiences anymore. Has that actually changed your service style, or indeed the people who you are recruiting?
I think that's really interesting. I think what we found now at Galvin, at Windows specifically, is the service is much more genuine. And I think that's what people are looking for. I think we go into look. I will be very clear, and we have to be very. There is institutions in the UK that have that service, and may long they continue, and they have their place, and they're the ones we look to. If we think about the Ritz, and the Savoys and these places. But in Galvin at Windows, what we've seen at ease. people want you at ease. And also that big thing about dress code, which I've argued backwards and forwards, you know, people dress more relaxed now. I went to a certain restaurant, I would, you know, Peter walked in and was told I couldn't dine there because I didn't have a jacket on. They had to give me a jacket from the cloakroom, which I thought was ridiculous. Really, and I wouldn't wear this jacket. Well, hey. So I think the outcome now is a lot more relaxed, but you can't compromise the quality in that, and you can't compromise the resource you need for that, you know. So I think you've got to ensure the quality, like the quality we offer at Galvin at Windows is the highest quality from the food, from our wines, from our service, but that can be done in a genuine way. And I think people are just over the BS of, you know, you say it without meaning it. And I think that's the new luxury hospitality. And I think, again, because of my experience with Virgin, you know, I was on where, you know, you pay a lot of money to stay on some of his properties, but there's such a relaxed feel, but it's uber luxury. And I think that's what the wider industry and guests are looking for now. And that hopefully makes the team as well feel more relaxed in the business. And they can be who they are. You know what I mean? If they've got a tattoo, so what? You know, back in the day, you'd refuse someone a job, or someone come from an agency, but you'd be like, no, he's got a tattoo. Like, no, like, embrace it. Like, what's, you know? I think we have to be more genuine and real in our industry, definitely.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? No? Wonderful. Well, we've got some time after this if you want to grab Peter and ask him a question over a drink. But first of all, I just want to say a massive thank you. Thank you so much. A round of applause, please. Yeah, and thank you so much, Brigad, for holding this event. There's going to be some more drinks, chance to network as well. Have a lovely evening, and yeah, looking forward to meeting all of you in person as well. And Pauline has something else to say.
Something to say. Thank you so much, Peter and Millie. That was wonderful. Thank you. So you know as well, we have another event in 2 weeks' time, which you're more than welcome to come around. It's a bit different. It's a workshop with the Burton Project on how to identify and managing stress in the workplace. This is a fundraising event, £10 a ticket, and all proceeds will go to the charity. Obviously, you can register on Eventbrite, or obviously, if you have the Brigad app, you can register through the app as well, which I really advise you to do. Thank you so much. And now, as we said, we're going to have more drinks, and canapé will be served in like 30 minutes.
Thank you.
So please stay along.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.